Meanwhile, we see Alan's group passing through Banquet Hall. As soon as he reaches the social gathering, a bunch of jerks surround him again. Other noble houses join in making fun of him too. Their attitude hadn't changed. Two parasitic nobles were hanging around nearby, openly mocking him. One of them sneered that Alan looked like some guy who's gobbling up prongs out of greed. Then, casually, he placed a beer bottle on Alan's head and clicked his tongue in fake sympathy. Helen didn't react at all. She completely ignored them. A true noble kept composing. Meanwhile, Ellen calmly assessed the situation in his mind. To him, they were nothing more than fish trapped in a net, completely unaware that the fisherman had already tightened it long ago. As the night slowly grew darker, the nobles settled down to rest. Even then, Evan enjoyed his food without a care, while Ellen completely ignored those two guys. On the other hand, those two were getting frustrated and making ugly faces. That brat from the Pal family is totally ignoring us. One thought bitterly. This is absurd. Another came closer and asked, "What about the additional squad?" The guy replied softly, "I already checked using an artifact. It's just that brat and his lunatic knight, that's all." His voice turned cold. How dare they associate with their nobility? It's insulting. And if the rumors about their death are true, we can move forward immediately. We'll enter the underworld without any delay. The two nobles looked at each other. Their expressions grew even more. They were getting more and more restless while making plans. They were talking about breaking free from the shadow of the Plethio family and dreaming of grabbing the immense wealth and power circulating in the underworld. One of them let out a slow, unsettling laugh. "Once we control the back routes, shouldn't we give Brad a little gift too?" "Yeah," the other replied with a twisted smile. "When we show him just how terrifying this world really is, he'll be grateful." Neither of them. No one had any idea that the great moon they were so casually brushing off was way scarier than they imagined. As their whispers went on, the ground suddenly started shaking. A deep rumble echoed from behind the camp. In the darkness, monsters began moving forward in huge numbers. It was clear a massive monster army was coming, and the whole night plunged into chaos. At that moment, Evan froze in place. His eyes were fixed on the goblin monsters behind him, their eyes glowing a deep crimson as they advanced in coordinated groups. A panicked noble. He rushed past, and Avon saw his chance and took position to stop the attack. One of the mages raised his staff toward the sky. Thunder cracked, and without any hesitation, he charged straight at the monsters. The goblins in front of them were abnormally large. Their bodies were way more powerful than expected. One knight, in disbelief, said, "Are these really goblins?" While another arrogantly dismissed them as just weaker monsters you usually find in the forest. But their confidence wavered when the huge number of goblins suddenly. They were surrounded from all sides. The table looked up. Anxiety spread across his face, and he shouted at Alan to get ready to fight. One goblin stood out from the rest. He was way taller than the others. Alan's eyes narrowed as he saw a wounded knight fall to the ground. The huge goblin moved toward him mercilessly. Alan quickly said, "That thing's charging straight at the knight." "Everyone guarding outside, get ready." A nearby knight shouted in confusion, wanting to know what was going on. Alan said. He answered without any hesitation. His voice was tense but controlled. "I've never seen goblins like this before. They look different. Their bodies are different. This isn't normal. It's a mutation, and they're filled with rage. If this is true, their physical strength is on a whole other level." The knights launched a counterattack, but the goblins kept pushing forward with terrifying force. The leading goblin slammed into the ground, sending out a brutal shockwave that cracked the earth beneath them. Debris scattered everywhere, and the monster got ready to charge again. Suddenly, the ground shook violently. He started trembling. The whole area shook when Alan finished his enchantment. Massive slabs of rock rose from the ground like some unseen force had called them. A knight whispered in disbelief, comparing it to an earthquake. The huge goblin was stunned when the rock formation crashed down, forcing the goblin horde to instinctively fall back. A dull glow spread across the battlefield, and silence took over. A knight, surprised, said, "Third-tier magic rock wall and a second-tier shield." Another mage looked around in shock. "There's another mage here? Who is he?" Alan asked. He didn't answer and calmly started another enchantment. His mana was compressing inward. When he spoke a word, the compression converged layer by. A powerful shockwave spread outward, forming a massive structure like a golden cannon. All the monsters were forcibly pulled toward the rock formation at its center. This point became the core of Alan's enchantment. The focal center of his overwhelming power froze every goblin trapped inside the magical barrier right where they stood. Alan's eyes scanned them coldly. Everyone around watched this scene unfold. The stunts were absolutely insane to watch. Alan spoke again, his tone calm and refined. There was a loud rumble from the vacuum chamber. The energy inside the barrier fluctuated wildly, distorting the air itself. Without any hesitation, Alan said, "Return to the primordial." The softness in his voice made it even more terrifying. The crystal on his bracelet suddenly glowed brightly and then shattered outward. The goblin monsters trapped inside the barrier were crushed under overwhelming pressure. One by one, despair surrounded them, and Alan's magic completely wiped them out. Both disposable nobles kept staring in disbelief. Their faces went pale as they watched the scene unfold at night. Alan stepped forward and spoke quickly, his presence commanding. "Don't just stand there. Stop overthinking. Get ready." His eyes charged through the darkness towards the remaining goblins. As monsters and knights clashed, the fight instantly reignited. Alan moved forward, too. It felt like mana was coursing through his body as he joined the battle. One by one, monsters fell, and the knights chased down whatever was left, cutting them down. He struck. By the next day, the entire goblin army was completely wiped out. The area was devastated. They were still reeling from the aftermath of the massacre. One noble said excitedly, "Finally, it's over." Several knights, tired but smiling, were slowly talking among themselves. They said the thing the world feared truly lived up to its reputation, or none of them would have survived. Suddenly, Alan's expression changed. His face twisted, and he said, "I was almost straight up heading to my grave." That's when he felt the strain in his body. It happened. The number of spells he cast was way beyond his usual limit. Right in the middle of the fight, he was nothing more than an ordinary guy. His already limited stamina was completely drained. That's when Evan came running over. "Count, are you hurt anywhere?" "I'm fine," Alan replied, though his body was trembling a bit. Losing the ability to protect himself despite having power was scary. Evan frowned. "Are you really okay?" Master Alan didn't answer right away. Lost in his thoughts, he remembered that he had before. He had gone far away because there was a lot of noise around. Staying close to the nobles was the safer choice. But that wasn't the real issue bothering him. Why did the divine descent happen? He clearly remembered that phenomenon. When forces from the outer world tried to descend, the monsters influenced by them would go berserk. Their physical abilities would drastically enhance. He didn't have any solid conclusions yet, but the anxiety was gripping his chest. Alan said softly, "How is this possible? This shouldn't be happening here." Alan spoke in a slow, measured voice. I explained the situation. Based on his analysis, these were fringe outer gods, beings who were only supposed to appear after the awakening descent of the 5 great sins and the collapse of the world's law. Their presence meant only one thing: they were preparing to descend to Earth. This conclusion sent a chill through him. Alan's expression darkened. In a cold tone, he said, "The kids haven't even awakened as the 5 great sins yet, so if that's the case, why is this problem even happening?" The next day came quietly. Alan was open. He was standing under the sky, staring up. "We need to gather info right away," he said, his eyes shifting towards Evan, and a heavy thought hit him. If things keep going like this, heads will start rolling soon. Nearby, those 2 despicable nobles were standing frozen in place. Even now, they couldn't process what they'd seen. Alan spoke again, his voice shaking slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of the situation. Later that day, Alan arrived at Duckle House. "We're finally here," he said calmly, having gone through so much trouble. "Big trouble's waiting." He checked out the area, analyzed the power flow in the state, and then flat out said disturbances are rising around the Grand Cathedral.